What's up, FA Nation? Happy Monday, and welcome to the best week of the year in NBA DFS. By best, I mean the absolute, utter.
I was gonna say, is this an April Fool's joke? I think this slate's an April Fool's joke.
I do too, and I think it's going to be a continuous April Fool's joke, John, until basically the end of the year. But we are the NBA guys. Thank you today for Matt Sells producing behind the scenes. But we have a 9-game slate to talk about, John. Not much time to talk about it. How you feeling? Nice, refreshing weekend off, by the way.
It was a weekend off, but it wasn't. Not really feeling refreshed. Went to Austin. Was out till 3 a.m. every day. So feeling tired. Took the rest day. To put into this playbook, and I'm ready to go.
I mean, the coach said, he needs rest, so he took a rest day. But we have a ton of injury news to get to, so let's just talk about that. Obviously, Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, probably the biggest two. They're out. Jaylen Brown out. Kyrie and Al Horford going to play. Luke Kennard questionable. Darren Collison is out. Corey Joseph and Tyreke Evans both starting tonight. I found that interesting. Giannis is still questionable. Chris Middleton is still questionable. Kevin Love is out. We know DeAndre Ayton suffered that injury the other night, and Rashawn Holmes is going to start in his place. Luka Doncic is considered doubtful, so there's going to be a lot of value that opens up in Dallas, which is super unfortunate. We know all the Bulls guys are out, and we have some fruit starting as point guard, or I think Lemon's a fruit. Lemon's a fruit, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
I really that's a very weird fruit if it is.
It's citrus.
Yeah, sure. But
you live in Florida, you know what citrus is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not original. People they're crazy down here. I'm not original Floridian. Let's hop over to Vegas. We have some good totals. We have some really ugly totals as well. We have a game at 204. We just might not need to touch, but unfortunately, Blake Griffin's out also in that game, in the Detroit-Indiana game. So there's obvious plays there. 229 in Milwaukee, Brooklyn. Does the 1.5 spread in that game lead you to believe Giannis and Middleton play? One or the other plays? Neither play.
I think with 1.5 point spreads, neither are playing.
And it's favored on the road for Milwaukee. Is that
right?
So you still think neither play?
And just 1.5 points? I don't think you're. I feel like if Giannis and Middleton are playing, we're looking at a 5-6 point spread. I mean, yes, Brooklyn's a playoff team, but they're 39-38, and Milwaukee's the best team in the East. If they were going in fully healthy tonight, I'm thinking 6+ points. Boston's 6.5 point favorites tonight against a 500 team. I would have to assume that somebody's sitting there in Milwaukee.
Right. I agree. Just, figured I'd ask. Portland, Minnesota, 226. And then the only other 220 total we have is Cleveland, Phoenix, which actually should be a pretty intriguing game.
It's my favorite stack of the night. I talked about it on the radio today.
I mean, neither of them play any defense. And plus we have a pretty decent player going for a pretty decent amount of points pretty much every night. Yep. But John, without further ado, you do have some wise words for the kind people at FA Nation.
That's very true. MLB is finally here. Do you want to win your seasonal baseball leagues and dominate DFS? With the MLB Playbook Pro, you get your analysis, customizable tools, playbooks, example lineups, ownership percentages, and a lineup generator that also uses actual analysis instead of just a computer-generated numbers. For seasonal players, you get a new league sync tool, allows you to sync your teams directly to our website. Go to fantasyline.com/MLB season, save instantly, get the $200 package for $75, and win for the whole season. That's fantasyline.com/MLB season, and see green in your fantasy baseball contests. Really nothing better than seeing green in your lineups there, James, right? We want fire flames if we're looking at the actual lineup on the DK app. Everywhere else, we just want to see our tournament markers up in the green. It means we're winning some cash. So, baseball season's here. We're already talking about some of the lineups, and this is like the best part of everything, because if you really wanted to, you could play some hockey, you can play some basketball, and play baseball all on the same night. You could have 3 screens of box scores going all tournaments going everywhere, and you could be crushing DFS here at Fantasy Lab. So get in the action.
Right. Let's hop into the slate, though, John, because we have 22 minutes to touch on a 9-game slate and 100 players in your playbook. So let's start at point guard, where the spend-ups tonight are pretty much between Lillard, Simmons, and Kyrie. How are you breaking them down? I mean, 2 of them are very obvious, and one is probably the GPP pivot off of the other 2.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Ben Simmons is. I honestly think he's the best player, price per dollar wise, probably on the slate tonight. Like, let's see, we get right now. We got Middleton, and so Giannis is in, Middleton's out. That's what we have here. So we'll touch upon that when we get to it. Obviously, Giannis, great spot. Middleton, interesting being out there. Price per dollar, I think Simmons could be maybe the best play here. On DraftKings, he's 9,000. On FanDuel, he's 10,000. He went for a triple-double in the first matchup here against Dallas. There's no Embiid. There's no Butler. We already know, he consistently gives us that 50-plus fantasy point upside. Went for 50 against Minnesota. I'm just finding it hard to think that, a Jalen Brunson, whoever they're going to stick out there for Dallas, is going to be able to slow down Ben Simmons here. So for me, price per dollar, Ben Simmons is the top point guard. We obviously know with no McCollum, Lillard's lighting it up. We've talked about it now for, over a week, basically since that McCollum injury went down. He gets Minnesota. Tyus Jones, small diminutive guy, not a great defender. So Lillard, obviously, you can go ahead and throw there. He's more expensive than Simmons, so I'm actually not expecting really any ownership there on Lillard unless we're looking at game stacks. And then you're right. For Kyrie, I have him listed as guys I like, but not in the playbook. Coming back after the day off here, averaging 50 fantasy points in 2 games against Miami, as it is. They're at home. They're like a game behind the Pacers here for that 4 seed, so they're really competing for that 5-4 slot here. I think that's going to be a competitive game because Miami, as I mentioned today on XM with Howard and Jim, there's 4 teams in the bottom of the Eastern Conference playoffs separated by a game and a half. So Miami's definitely going to bring it tonight in Boston. And I know Irving, back in the lineup tonight could do some things. So he's definitely my GBP pivot off the top 3.
Right. Just to backtrack on Lillard's projected ownership, him and Simmons are about equal at around 30%.
I find that surprising. I think maybe once we get that update, maybe we'll see maybe an adjustment there. I really just think everybody's going to gravitate, save the extra cash. I mean, you're saving $500 over on FanDuel. On DraftKings, we have Lillard priced out at what we got. We got him at $10,000, right? And Simmons is at $9,000. So you're saving $1,000 on DK, $500 on FanDuel, and Simmons on this slate, giving the matchup, is giving you just as much upside. I mean, we're talking about a Dallas team that's basically tanking, possibly no Luka. It's just a 5.5 point spread the last I saw, right? So it's projected to be sort of a competitive game here with a decent total. So I'll go Simmons all day in that matchup.
Okay. Let's move to the mid-tier where we have just a plethora of options. We have Eric Bledsoe, who now we know is going to be without Chris Middleton. We have Colin Sexton, who, again, is getting a Phoenix team who doesn't play any defense, and he's coming in playing just really good basketball, especially offensively. We have Shaq Harrison, who has been great with the Bulls since entering the starting lineup. And we have guys like Goran Dragic and Jalen Brunson. How are you breaking down this middle tier? I mean, it's a really strong group of guys.
No, I mean, I definitely like Bledsoe. Obviously I would have liked it maybe a little bit. It had both sat because we just know that means the entire offense would have gone through for him. But as a point guard, I feel like having Giannis is beneficial here because you can rack up some of the assists. It's still the 2-man show. Bledsoe's going to do a lot of the outside game, take a lot of the threes, I think. So I'm still in on Bledsoe here in this matchup against Brooklyn. Loving the late night hammer tonight. We have Cleveland, Phoenix. 2 bad teams. They're going to score a lot of points. And as you mentioned, Sexton playing all the minutes. So I'm a big fan of Sexton in all formats. Shaq Harrison, sort of the same thing. I mean, he's getting the Knicks tonight. We've been attacking the Knicks all season long at their guard spots. Moutier, Dennis Smith Jr., all those, they're just terrible defenders. Harrison can definitely go back to the well with him if you want. Same price points, him and Sexton. So I feel like, there could be a lot of people coin flipping between those two. And I almost feel like people are probably going to go at Harrison. Do you have a favorite between those two? Which one would you tend to lean more?
Harrison against the Knicks is really enticing.
Really enticing.
He's not just scoring, he's really doing everything for Chicago. I mean, given there's no Chris Dunn, who's a passer, there's no Zach LaVine, who's a scorer. no Otto Porter who plays defense. They're like he's like kind of like meshing into like a like one for all kind of player, and
Yeah.
I kind of lean Harrison against the Knicks. They've been really bad against point guards and really bad against shooting guards over the last month. I mean, they've been bad all year, but specifically the last month, they were like 24th and 28th against the positions respectively. So I'd probably lean Harrison, but it's not, you can't go wrong with either option.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned Dragic and Brunson again. Dragic, I think, the way that they're kind of pushing him, he went for another 50 fantasy points just a couple games ago. So, when he's on. In Boston, it's a must win. So when we've talked about it, you got to give these teams that are vying for playoff spots, they want it more. Maybe, the Celtics have been up and down all year. I know they're home, but, who knows? So I think Dragic and GBPs is fine. Reggie Jackson, there's no Blake Griffin. They're kind of going back and forth. So I think Jackson, could be a good option here. They're also possibly without Kennard tonight. And I think Galloway might have just been ruled in. I saw like a brief little message about him, but he was questionable to play tonight too. So
yeah, he's officially expected to play.
So they were down some guys though, so they could feed Reggie Jackson some potential increase there. And then if we know Luka, anytime that's happened, we've been all over the Brunson train here. So all those guys I think are fine. I also think Moutier, he's been playing a bunch of minutes, playing really well. He gets Chicago, so I think we can go ahead and attack there. And then Seth Curry, continues to play 30 minutes. He doesn't always start the game, but he's there at least on the floor. So I personally think that Seth Curry, again, under 5K on both sites. If you're game stack in Portland, Minnesota, he's a great way to save some money and get, a guy that's going to play 30 minutes. Again, under 5K. All right,
let's move on to shooting guard. And I want to start at the highest price point, and I want to start at the lowest price point, because I think they're going to be two of the chalkiest plays on the slate. I mean, let's just go right to Walt Lemon Jr., shall we? Because he's going to be the chalkiest play on the slate. For whatever reason, his price did not get risen at all. And they announced that he was starting 3 days ago. After the game.
They had a day in between or 2 days in between. They didn't touch him.
And they had every opportunity to adjust his price. They knew he was starting. They knew he came off 30 minutes. They knew he's getting the Knicks.
You know why they didn't do it, right? Baseball started.
Yeah, yes.
And the sites have forgotten about the NBA.
Except when you go over to FanDuel and you see Rashawn Holmes is $6,500.
Right.
And
that's true. They were able to react to that injury on like a day's notice where they couldn't fix Walt Lemon Jr.'s price. He averaged like 20 points a game in the G League. That doesn't always translate, but I mean, he came right up here, put up 42 fantasy points against Toronto, who's like a really solid team. Even their backups are good. Yeah, we have him at 50% ownership. It's probably going to be higher.
He's in every line, right? Like he's
in every lineup.
Has to be a staple of lineups tonight.
Mm-hmm. There's like if you're playing at 20 max, he has to be in 18 of them. Like
would you go as far to saying if someone was really like, I want to play Walt Lemon, if they were in the 20 max, would you say it's fine to play him in all 20?
Yeah, of course. I'm just saying, like, it's good to obviously be, like that one. Right, like if he doesn't do anything, if he fouls early, if like something weird happens, but he's facing the Knicks. So I mean, like, it's just the best spot for a guy coming off this game with no pricing, mint price on both sides, man. And this is what we talked about all those podcasts we did. We mentioned the end of the year in DFS NBA how crazy it gets. It's because Walt Lemon Jr. is the chalk play going for 50 fantasy points. So like. Yeah, you got to throw him in there. The guy at the top, you mentioned Devin Booker, almost 3 straight games of 70-plus fantasy points. Went for like 70, 70, and 68. He's taking 30-plus shots a night. No Ayton now. And Josh Jackson came back, but he had to take 9 shots the other day. They've involved Jamal Crawford. For whatever reason, Jamal Crawford's now playing a bunch of minutes again. Like, they just decided to bring him back for the end of the year. So, yeah, it's got to be Booker for like 35 shots here against Cleveland. Yeah, sign me up. He's a top price play, but for a good reason. He's in a lot of my lineups tonight. Coverboy, the playbook. Again, the ownership on him, I think, needs to be, especially the late night. You don't want to not have Devin Booker have that 10 p.m. game go off, and now you're knowing that 50 plus is coming from just him, and it's a very stackable game too. So like, I really think that Cleveland Phoenix game is going to be pretty chalky with guys in there. And yeah, you're going to want to have action in that, or else you're going to be in trouble.
50 plus actual might be coming, not just just fantasy points, not just fantasy points.
He doesn't need 80 to keep them competitive tonight, but 80 will probably be part of a competitive game. So,
I mean, just the way he's scoring right now, anything is possible.
Yeah.
But I guess if for whatever reason you wanted to pivot off Devin Booker, there are guys like D'Angelo Russell who, again, we're attacking a playoff team. Maybe it's not the best spot, but D'Angelo Russell has been in good form. Dwayne Wade is another guy in a playoff hunt. Andrew Wiggins has been really, really steady. I've been kind of saying it for a week, little plus, like since all these injuries. Andrew Wiggins has been really steady. There's some nice, again, mid-tier options here, right, John?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the one thing I like actually more about this news now with Giannis playing is like he plays, in the front court, where that means Russell's still going to see, whether it's Connaughton or Sherling Brown or where else, that Colson kid, if they pull him at like one of the forward or guard spots, like he's not going to have to worry about Middleton. He's not going to have to worry about those guys. So I still think not Wiggins. I want to talk about Wiggins so bad. I keep mentioning him instead of Russell. Russell's still in a really good spot. We know the ceiling's been there. But I'm really in on Wiggins tonight in this matchup here against Portland. We've been attacking Portland pretty much all season long, at that small forward position. And that's where we've seen like a lot of minutes being played for Wiggins this year. I mean, he's listed as a shooting guard.
For whatever reason.
Yeah, he's played 70% of his minutes this year at small forward. Dealing with Mo Harkless defense. We talked about Mo Harkless defensive ratings and like the 113, 114s for like all season long. So Wiggins, it's really him and Towns going 1-2. Love this as my contrarian stack tonight. I know they have a lot of popular people, but some of them are kind of priced up. I think a lot of people go to that Cleveland-Phoenix game. So I think Minnesota-Portland can be sort of like a pivot off of that stack. This is a really good spot here for Wiggins. I got him in some lineups tonight too.
Yeah. D-Wade tournaments or would you go as far to saying cash? I mean, we don't need to play him in cash because we have guys like Booker and Lemon and Wiggins. But like, if you didn't have the money to get up to Booker or Wiggins, would you consider Wade a cash play with all the injuries that they're kind of dealing with?
Yes, I mean, Wade's always been like the cash game play for us all season long, as it is anyways. We've always gone sort of Wader's GPP, Wade, and cash games. But the way he's playing right now, I mean, he had back-to-back 40 fantasy point games. We've talked about it a bunch of times like this. He's not playing like a guy that should be retiring. He's playing like a guy that should maybe just continue to come off the bench. And where would Miami be really without him? They probably wouldn't be chasing a playoff spot. Maybe this is the send-off he wants. One last push. Get him into the playoffs. Probably get eliminated by Toronto or Milwaukee. Yeah. But I mean, damn, he's certainly shown up, and I think you can use him in all formats tonight.
Let's move to small forward, John. Let's talk about Giannis specifically, real quick. Do you project him to play how do you project Giannis tonight? Like, do you project him to play a full complement minutes? Because you said it at the top of this live stream. They're clinched. They're basically the 1 seed. There's nothing that can really affect them. Like, is there a reason to play Giannis 30 plus minutes? What is your projection for Giannis tonight, personally?
Well, we just got the update that he's not on a minutes limit. So, I mean, if we're gonna get
the limit, they could come out and say that, but do you almost buy it? Like, we've heard coaches say plenty of things this year.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this guy is going to be monitored, and then he plays 35 minutes. Or this guy is no limitations, and for Boogie Cousins, doesn't play more than 24 minutes for the first 2 weeks of his next phase.
The thing that has me a little bit on pause here, and I do believe that they wouldn't just trick us here, but They did it with Bledsoe the other night. They said he's going to come off be available to play off the bench, and then played 0 minutes. So they didn't rule him out. They put him on the bench. People were obviously curious about that. I think it's because they had too many other injuries that they just needed a body available in case Bledsoe had to play, and they just didn't need him. I don't think they're going to just say he's active for the sake of not playing him. I think he's good to go tonight. I think you're going to see probably 30 minutes out of Giannis, and he's getting Brooklyn, which he's averaging 70 fantasy points against him in 2 meetings. So I don't think I would use him in cash games because there is obviously that risk.
Right.
But I mean, this is also a guy that we've seen in 25 minutes go for 60. So even if he is limited, which they're saying he's not limited, It's not even like a monitored or expected to it's not no minutes limit here, supposedly for Giannis. It makes you question because Brooklyn's been a competitive team, really, anyways. But we always talk about them at home. They're really a competitive team. Yeah, I mean, I know Giannis is the best player, obviously, in this game, but, if some of these other guys on Brooklyn can keep it close, if Dinwiddie gets going, if D'Angelo Russell especially gets going, if this is a somewhat competitive game for 3 quarters, Giannis could really, win the slate over. So, GPP pivot for me now with Giannis for sure. I'm still taking Booker and probably Towns as the top spend-ups over him. But, I mean, damn, hard to argue with a guy like Giannis, especially in this matchup, the way he's played against them.
Him and Russell could be an interesting little contrarian GPP stack. I mean, if you want to get exposure to that game. I guess same thing really applies to Kawhi because, again, it's another team that isn't really playing for anything. He's going to play. Maybe they want to get him into playoff shape since he's been sitting kind of frequently of late. Do you think basically everything you said about Giannis, except the fact that he's there's not as much upside, I'd say, in Kawhi, would you say about Giannis? There's not any limits. There's not really an expectation of it either.
Yeah, the other thing here with him was that, everybody's healthy for them too. They're playing everybody. So how much is that really going to hinder him? He hasn't played particularly well against Orlando for one reason or another. If you just look at the game logs, 2 games, averaging 30 minutes, averaging 31 fantasy points, shooting 42%. So whether those are games where he's just not really trying because he doesn't have to, or they're just, the offense is going away from him, maybe they were blowouts, he's averaging a fantasy point per minute against them. So we've had trouble paying this price for Leonard all season long anyways. So for me, he's just really a contrarian, maybe pivot stack. If you want to go get action in that game, you think it goes competitive. We've seen Orlando being some games that have won slates this year. So whenever we count them out, they tend to come through. But I'm not really on this Orlando-Toronto game much. But, I mean, it's hard to argue with a talent like Kawhi.
I think honestly, our boy John Isaac probably has a lot to do with his struggles because John Isaac's length can give a lot of people problems. Let's just break down the rest of the small forward, John. I mean, you have Ingles, Bogdanovich, Redick, Crowder, guys like Harkless in the value tier. Gordon Hayward with no Jaylen Brown, probably more usage off that second unit. Joe Harris, and then everyone's darling from the other night, the 6'7" power college center Bonzi Colson. Where are you looking at the rest of the small forward? How do you break down all these guys they have down here in the mid tier and value tier?
Yeah, I mean, and to throw into that grouping with the Collison injury, our boy Tyreke Evans is starting again.
Our boy.
And if you look at our ownership, as much as it breaks my heart, Tyreek's right there, 52% over on FanDuel, 36% right now over on DraftKings. It pains me when we have to play him. He's only $3,600 though, over on DraftKings. So that's just. Yeah, it's a really strong price, but he just hasn't been there for us whenever we wanted to. He had that nice little stretch.
Lately, he has. Yeah. Lately, more often than not.
Yeah, more often than not. I like the consistency with the shots for 5 straight games of 9 shot attempts. So Evans, I think you have to consider just for the chalk. Colson, I'll consider if we see that starting lineup and he's in there at power forward or small forward or something next to Giannis. Maybe we'll consider him. I largely am taking Lemon over him, and that's just sort of where I stand with him. But yeah, I mean, that mid-tier group is certainly quite interesting. I mean, up at the top, Cedi Osman still with no Kevin Love as well, Miles Bridges, some other guys that are sort of in that grouping that we can look at. But I mean, Joe Ingles, there's potential that Nato doesn't play tonight. We saw Ingles when Rubio and Nato were both out. He was averaging 8 assists a game. There's potential maybe for some second unit sort of point forward to go through him. Maybe he gets some increased stats that way. Plus against Charlotte, there's some upside with him. Bojan, I mean, automatic, right? He's just a guy that we love putting out to our lineups every single night, all formats. And again, they're not adjusting his price. They're just sitting him in the 6K range. For whatever reason, they feel like there's just always a cap on where they'll price Bojan at, despite the fact that his production exceeds that. With Crowder, there's no Derek Favors. He's out tonight. He went for 38 fantasy points in his first meeting against Charlotte. They're going sort of smaller now too. playing like Bridges, playing Bacon. Marvin Williams his minutes are being decreased, so I think he's a good spot. We've made a living attacking Minnesota at small forward. This could be a night that Mo Harkless goes off. So yeah, I think this is interesting. JJ Redick as well. No Butler, no Embiid tonight. There could be some additional shots. We've seen him break slates this year. So, and then I have Joe Harris actually in a lot of lineups tonight, playing a lot of minutes again, scoring over 30 fantasy points a night. Harris is in there for me as well.
Yeah, Harris has really taken on a nice solid role since the Allen Crabbe injury. Mm-hmm. And he's been taking more shots and been more aggressive offensively. Let's move over to power forward, John, where your three highest priced guys in the playbook are Tobias Harris, Bam Adebayo, and Larry Nance. Break those three down and how you would use them in either cash games or tournaments.
Yeah, so two guys that I actually have in every lineup I've built tonight is Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. I think, again, with no Butler, no Embiid, a lot of the offense is going to shift towards Tobias Harris. It's sort of that kick out option. Ben Simmons isn't a scorer. He just sort of gets to the rim and can score around there. But the jump shots are going to go to Harris and Redick, and I think Harris is going to take a lot of those. He's coming off a 40 fantasy point game against Minnesota. I really like him tonight in this spot. I think he's one of the top overall plays. We've been talking about Bam now, it seems like, for 2 weeks. He's the starting center. He's consistent as ever. He's played really well against Boston this year. Al Horford coming back from that ailing knee. Who knows how well he's really going to move. I wouldn't be shocked to see a double-double here out of Bam, maybe a block or two. So he's a guy that's very safe. And then with no Kevin Love, Tristan Thompson's still sort of limited. Larry Nance is a guy, again, in the spot against Phoenix we have to really take advantage of. He's super energetic. We know the rebounds will be there. And if he has a scoring night, which he certainly can here against his Suns team, hard to argue with his upside.
He's been really good lately, too. He's been good with Kevin Love active. So Nance is definitely a solid play. Moving down the list, Thaddeus Young in a good matchup he's not projected a lot of ownership, could be a little contrarian. Josh Jackson, you mentioned, you love that game. And we kind of alluded to it earlier. Rashawn Holmes got a insane price bump. I guess the question becomes, I know you're going to pay it on DraftKings because it's only $4,500. Yeah. Would you pay the $6,500 on FanDuel that they're asking for Rashawn Holmes?
So I don't know if I would pay for it on FanDuel because Cleveland actually has been pretty good against centers this year. And Tristan Thompson being back has kind of been one of the reasons. He's just a big body. It's hard for guys to move him when they're down on the block. He gets a lot of rebounds. So he does a good job at sort of limiting. And Holmes is somewhat the same size. They're kind of similar players. Holmes is more athletic than Thompson, but aside from that, but build-wise, it's not something that Tristan can't handle, where sometimes he just gets overmatched size-wise by some of the bigger centers in the league. So I'm not going to pay him on FanDuel. DraftKings, I can understand it. GPP is only with him, though. Josh Jackson, he's playing 30-plus minutes, probably going to take, at least some of the offense away from Booker because he really needs some help, a little bit of help. And he's the only jump shooter that they really have left. You can go down to Dragon Bender, too. He's playing a bunch of minutes. He's cheaper than them all. So, again, you could go that direction as well if you're looking at some value. Another guy which I shook my head at when I was doing some research.
Don't say it, John. There. Don't say it, John.
Well, I was alluding to Luke Cornett.
I know. Oh.
And he's in the starting lineup again tonight.
Yep.
They DNC did not play coach's decision. Hazonia the other day. Vonleh's out. It looks like we're possibly going back into Luke Cornett territory. Yeah. He teased us all earlier this year for a 3-game stint where he had a huge game. We sat here, we're are we really going to trust Cornett again? And he had another good game. And then the next game, everybody bought into him and he played 15 minutes and Vonleh. So I'm willing to go back to the well here with Cornett if you really want to save some money. It's a matchup against Chicago. It's not a difficult spot for him, which is one of the reasons why he's appealing to me. Dario Saric is a pivot off of that if you want. Again, there's no Gibson. He's doubtful to play tonight. He's going to play 25-plus minutes. Jonah Bolden started for Embiid the other day. 44 fantasy points against Minnesota. Probably, if the lineup hasn't been released already.
He's starting. They already announced it. Yeah, they already announced he's starting again.
So he's probably starting again. I have him in some JPP lineups tonight as sort of a Sixers stack. I think this matchup for him against Dwight Powell isn't going to be a tough one either. So Bolden's interesting in GPPs. I think you can definitely go back to him. So yeah, those are kind of some of the kind of the value power forwards that I've kind of taken notice. And Thon Maker is likely starting for Blake Griffin tonight, another guy you can take a look at.
Let's wrap it up at center, John, where we have a bunch of really good plays. And It's going to be hard to decipher whether you want to spend up or spend down because there's options both and the mid-tier as well. But, I mean, let's talk about Karl-Anthony Towns versus Andre Drummond and versus Rudy Gobert. We'll throw all three of them in because Utah's still fighting for playoff. Like, that whole Western Conference is jockeying for position. Like, there is nothing set in stone. Plus, we know Charlotte is still technically in the playoff hunt as well.
They're falling back, but they're still there. They're like, they're like 2.5 games now, 3 games. So, like, it's there. They can definitely go on a run. There's, like, and plenty of games for them if things break right for them for it to happen, but they're sort of slowly fading away. Towns versus Enes Kanter is one of the biggest mismatches probably we've seen maybe all year at the position. To me, again, if you were spending up, he's my top overall spend up. We've seen him go for 70 fantasy points just as recently as 4 games ago. The minutes should be there. There should be a competitive game too, so I'm not worried about any sort of blowout. So yeah, give me some Towns here. Don't think he's going to get in any foul trouble. Should play 35 minutes, I think, tonight. Kanter can't defend anybody, so he doesn't want to play defense. So I'm not really too worried about there. I think Drummond, could be one of the sort of the pivot down, and it's not a great matchup in terms of point spread, as you alluded to. It's not a great matchup in terms of matchup either because they have Sabonis, they have Turner, who are both strong defenders. Pacers are a strong defensive team, but there's no Blake Griffin. The last time that happened, he went for like 80 points against Cleveland or whatever it was. Like, he absolutely destroyed there. 21 points, 21 rebounds. Back-to-back 60 fantasy points games that he already is coming off of. Going to play 40 minutes as long as it's competitive. Drummond, just, again, a really good spot if you want to save some cash off Towns. He's there for you. And then we've attacked Charlotte all year in the center position. Gobert's, ate them alive that first matchup for 53 fantasy points. So hard to, again, argue sort of spending up there. The difference is I love the guy in the middle. And
I know you've loved them all year. You've loved them all year long.
I loved them all year long, and I wish I wasn't away and paying more attention to some basketball because I could have taken advantage of maybe the lower salaries. But my boy's back. Mitchell Robinson starting.
They haven't been lower, by the way. You didn't miss anything. FanDuel has jacked his price up the entire time. He has been over 6K. I think even when he was playing 10 minutes a night, he was 6K.
So that's fine. On FanDuel, I'd be willing to pay the 6K. But on DraftKings, he was under 5K for the last 3 weeks. And he went for 40 and 52 the last 2 games. I mean, I love him. He's such a good player. It's only $6,300 tonight on DraftKings. He gets the Bulls, who we've been attacking at center all season long. I don't see a way where he doesn't dominate this spot here. I'm saving the money. I'm paying down. I'm going Mitchell Robinson. He's in all of my lineups. I'm taking the risk in cash games of him getting in foul trouble. I just don't see it happening. I don't see Robin Lopez or Felicio or whoever they're throwing out there putting him in foul trouble. I'm calling 5+ blocks. I'm calling double-digit rebounds. It's all happening tonight for Mitchell Robinson. So he's in all my lineups. He's my favorite guy.
He's had 2+ blocks in about 25 consecutive games. If you go through his box score, it's legitimately he could play 4 minutes and you will see 2+ blocks in the block category. It's ridiculous.
There was a crazy stat where I wish I saved the tweet because it was showing how great he was. Where it was maybe rookies plus minus win share, some sort of thing about a metric that they were rating the top rookies, and it was Luka and that was Robinson, and they were close in terms of production towards wins and games, and he's just a monster. He deserves next year is going to be, if they don't mess it up and sign Durant and Kyrie.
Well, it's the Knicks. It's the Knicks. So
Robinson has been just an elite play, and I'm all over him. DraftKings 6,300. Give me some.
Right. Let's just quickly talk about the 3 guys below him: Brook Lopez, Enes Kanter, Tristan Thompson. Because you're playing either the top guys or Robinson, probably just tournaments for all 3 of those guys, right?
Yeah, but again, we know Towns hasn't played much defense. We finally got over 30 minutes for Kanter the other night. He went for 42 fantasy points, 20 and 15. That's what he can do on an every
Correct.
night basis if you give him 33 minutes.
minutes.
Every single night he's going to do that. So, again, if you're game stacking, and this works only on DraftKings, but you can play Cantor and Towns and have, an upside of like 120 fantasy points right there. So, it's only $6,600 over on DraftKings as well. It isn't the worst pricing for him. Over on FanDuel, Cantor's priced out at $6,400. So, again, not the worst. Centers against the Nets will continue to forever be a thing for us this year. You get that revenge narrative with Brook Lopez. Giannis being back hurts him probably a little bit. Obviously, some of the usage may go away from him, but still a very consistent play, around 30 fantasy points a night you're getting. We also seen some upside from him. He just went for 60 against the Lakers a couple nights ago. Also sort of a revenge game there. So if he's going to play 30-plus minutes tonight, could be a really good spot for him against them. And then who was the last guy? Tristan Thompson. I mean, Phoenix, again, one of the worst teams in the NBA against centers. No DeAndre Ayton. Rashawn Holmes is a very foul-happy guy. Pretty much cost me, a couple $1,000 this year on an offensive turnover foul. I'm still bitter about that when he fouled out of the game. He played 26 minutes. The minutes are on the rise. If he plays 28 to 30 tonight, like double-double is probably a lock for him. So if you're stacking Cleveland-Phoenix, he's only $4,100 and $4,500. So really cheap price tag you're getting on a guy that can give you a double-double tonight.
That about does it, guys. I do have one question for you before we get out of here, John. What happened to Asher Roth?
I don't know. We were talking about that before we jumped on air, and that was like the article you clicked on before we went live. So you tell me, James, what happened to Asher?
I didn't get to read it before we came on the live stream, but it is interesting. If you are a generation of John and I, you did like his college anthem. But we're going to get out of here. We have about 20 minutes to roster lock. John and I will be in subscriber chat up until then. Big thanks to Matt South for producing. We'll catch you guys in the winner's circle.